Hello all, thank you for joining today for the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project pre-launch webinar. Let's get started. To start, I want to introduce you to the team that will be involved in today's webinar. My name is Nicole Appenzeller and I am the CALeVIP Project Manager at the Center for Sustainable Energy. I'll serve as today's moderator and moderate questions during our question and answer session. Divya Mathur is a CALeVIP Project Coordinator at the Center for Sustainable Energy and will be serving as today's speaker and will be leading today's webinar presentation. Brian Fauble is a project manager at the California Energy Commission, and Nelson Lomelli is a program manager at Sonoma Clean Power, and they will both be serving today as panelists during today's question and answer session. Before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. Participants can submit questions in the chat box at any time during the presentation, and we'll plan to cover those questions in the second half of the webinar. Due to high traffic, you may experience technical difficulties during this presentation, and we apologize for any potential delays or compromised presentation quality you experience. If you are experiencing issues, please use the chat box and we can help you troubleshoot during the presentation. But if you miss any part of this presentation or have questions, please reach out to us via our project email. Also, this presentation will be sent to all attendees within a week of this webinar. So you will have a copy of this presentation to reference in the future. So for today's agenda, I wanted to give you a quick overview of the structure so you know what to expect for today's 2-hour webinar. First, we'll start with an overview of CALeVIP, and then we'll dive into specifics on the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project, including key areas focused on eligibility and equipment requirements, as well as a walkthrough of the application process. And in the second half of the webinar, targeting the second hour, we'll have a Q&A session where you'll have a forum to submit questions and hear from our panelists, so that if you have any questions, we can talk through them as a group. You also always have access to reach out to our project email and phone number if you have any follow-up questions resulting after the webinar. So to start the presentation, I want to hand it off to Divya Mathur, who will be the speaker for today's webinar.
Hello, everyone. My name is Divya Mathur, and I work at the Center for Sustainable Energy as Project Coordinator for the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project, CALeVIP. Thank you for joining today's webinar presentation to learn more about CALeVIP's latest project, the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project, which will be launching on July 8th. Next slide, please. CALeVIP is funded through the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program, formerly known as the Alternative and Renewable Fuel and Vehicle Technology Program. Typically, CALeVIP receives over $20 million annually, but the final budget is dependent on the Clean Transportation Program budget each year. Source funding is available through 2024. Next slide. With an increasing need for electric vehicles, the need for electric vehicle charging infrastructure rises. CALeVIP's goals help mitigate this need by implementing regional incentive projects throughout California to address the need for EV charging. The goal of CALeVIP is to introduce greater accessibility to clean energy and alternative fuel transportation options within California by implementing incentive projects throughout the state, providing a streamlined application process, and providing convenient access to charging infrastructure. This project helps uphold the state's climate change policies, including less petroleum dependence and greater decarbonization. Next slide. Now let's shift into more details about the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project. This project provides Level 2 and DC fast charger rebates in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. Starting July 8th, organizations will be able to apply for rebates for businesses, nonprofits, workplaces, multi-unit dwellings, and public facilities. Rebates are available on a first-come, first-served basis, and certain areas are eligible for different charger rebate amounts. I'll cover key project requirements today, and for more details on any project requirements, please visit the Sonoma Coast webpage link at the bottom of this slide. The Sonoma Coast Incentive Project has over $6 million in available incentive funding for Level 2 and DC fast chargers. The funding chart is broken up between counties and funding based on fiscal year. For the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year, Sonoma County will have over $3 million available in DC fast charger funds and over $1 million available for Level 2 funds. For the 2020-2021 fiscal year, Mendocino County will have $300,000 in DCFC funds and $450,000 available in Level 2 funds. Additional Level 2 funding will be added for Sonoma County in the next 2 years. Next slide. The Sonoma Coast Incentive Project has specific goals to serve disadvantaged, low-income, and unincorporated communities. For the purposes of the project, these communities are defined as follows. A disadvantaged community is a community that has a census tract of 75% or higher based on the CalEnviroscreen 3.0. A low-income community is defined as a community that has a census tract at or below 80% of the statewide median income. Unincorporated communities include unincorporated towns in Sonoma and Mendocino counties. Next slide. There are funding allocations and restrictions that apply to each project region. A minimum of 25% of Mendocino County funds will be reserved for disadvantaged or low-income communities. Sites located in the cities of Laytonville, Leggett, Ukiah, and Willits are not eligible for DC fast charger funds. Given available DC fast charger funding in the county, CALeVIP aims to bring DC fast chargers to locations within the county that don't currently have DC fast charger projects planned. For Sonoma County, a minimum of 25% of both Level 2 and DC fast charger funds will be reserved for unincorporated communities. Next slide. Level 2 rebates are available per connector. The base rebate for a Level 2 connector is $5,000 per connector, and different sites typically can qualify for additional funds per connector. DAC or LIC sites qualify for an additional $500 per connector. Multi-unit dwelling sites qualify for an additional $1,000 per connector, and sites in unincorporated communities qualify for an additional $1,000 per connector. Next slide. These are the DC fast charger rebate amounts. The general market rebate for DC fast chargers with power levels between 50 kilowatts and 99.99 kilowatts is up to $50,000. The DAC-LIC rebate for this power level is up to $60,000. The general market rebate for DCFC fast chargers with power levels over 100 kilowatts is up to $70,000. The DAC-LIC rebate for this power level is up to $80,000 per charger. Next slide. To qualify for a rebate, an applicant must be the owner of the site or have authorization from the site owner to install. For example, service providers are eligible to apply for CALeVIP incentives on behalf of the site owner. All applicants are required to submit the site verification form within 5 calendar days of application submittal, regardless of the site ownership status. Additionally, an applicant must be a business, nonprofit organization, or government entity with California ties, and the organization must be registered with the California Secretary of State. Next slide. All chargers that applicants can choose from are listed on the eligible equipment list that CALeVIP maintains. This eligible equipment list is available for viewing on the CALeVIP project landing page right now. Equipment must meet certain criteria to be eligible for CALeVIP. Level 2 chargers must have a J1772 connector whereas DC fast chargers must have a CHAdeMO or SAE CCS connector options. Both charger types are required to be networked, Level 2 chargers with a 2-year networking minimum, and DC fast chargers with a 5-year networking minimum. All Level 2 EV chargers are required to be Energy Star certified, not just committed to becoming Energy Star certified. Additionally, recent CARB regulations will begin requiring credit card readers on the new charging equipment after January 1st, 2022, and there will be a 10-year 2033 requirement to add credit card readers on existing chargers that were installed before January 1st, 2022. These next two slides outline the eligible site types and installation site requirements for eligible chargers. Eligible site types for DC fast charging include commercial properties, hospitals, airports, and more. Please note that to apply for curbside charging, the charger must be installed and located within the same block as another eligible site type on this list. The chargers must be publicly accessible at all times and cannot be located in a gated area or closed off to the public. Next slide. Eligible site types for Level 2 charging include commercial sites, workplaces, multi-unit dwellings, and public facilities, and light-duty fleets. Similar to DC fast chargers, Level 2 curbside chargers must be installed and located within the same block as another eligible site type on this list. Please note that the chargers must be shared use and cannot be dedicated to a single driver or vehicle. Next slide. In either county, CALeVIP can rebate up to 1 to 10 Level 2 connectors per site. DC fast chargers in Sonoma County can be eligible for rebates for 1 to 4 chargers, and DC fast chargers in Mendocino County can be eligible for rebates for 1 to 3 chargers. An applicant may wish to install additional chargers at their site, but CALeVIP will only rebate up to these limitations. Next slide. Based on the county the installation site is in, there is a rebate cap limit for any one applicant. An applicant can have multiple applications, but the total funds reserved amount cannot exceed the active cap limit. Once an application is completed and paid out, the applicant is eligible to apply for additional funds. The maximum funds reserved amount for an applicant's active applications in Sonoma County is $400,000. In Mendocino County, the active cap limit per applicant is $160,000. Next slide. Let's describe this limit using Sonoma County as an example. An applicant in Sonoma County can have multiple active applications but cannot exceed the cap limit of $400,000 in reserved funds. An applicant files 3 separate applications in Sonoma County, one for $200,000, one for $100,000, and another for $100,000, totaling $400,000 in active funds. The company must completely finish and receive the rebate for at least one of those applications to file additional applications in Sonoma County. Once the first application is completed, the applicant receives the full funds reserved amount of $200,000. The applicant's active applications in Sonoma County now total $200,000. As a result, the applicant can now apply for up to $200,000 in new application funding in Sonoma County. Next slide. A variety of costs are eligible for CALeVIP, including equipment and installation costs. To be eligible for CALeVIP, most costs must be incurred after the funds reserved for your application, with one exception. Design, engineering, and utility service costs can be eligible if they were incurred after March 31st, 2020, but are incurred at the applicant's own risk until funds are reserved. Next slide. While many costs can be covered through CALeVIP, there are a few costs that are ineligible. Some ineligible costs include permit fees, project costs not related to EV charger installation, and costs paid for by other rebate or incentive programs. Please contact the CALeVIP project team if you are unsure if a cost you're incurring is covered by the project before you apply. Next slide. CALeVIP has several new important requirements. Starting with the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project and all future projects, all applicants must submit a site verification form regardless of site ownership status. The site verification form must be submitted within 5 calendar days of application submittal. If it's not submitted within this timeframe, the application will be canceled. The site verification form is currently available on the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project landing page, located in the download box. To avoid any potential hurdles, we recommend having this form signed and completed prior to applying for funds. Next slide. The second new requirement for the project is the evidence of permit submittal or utility service design submittal. This requirement was created as a way for CALeVIP to check in on the progress of each project and identify any hurdles during the first 2 months of reservation. The applicant must provide this evidence proving that the project has made progress within 60 calendar days of the fund's reserve date. The documents needed for evidence of permit submittal include a copy of the permit application, permit plan set, and payment receipt for the permit submittal. The documents needed for utility service design submittal include a copy of the utility permit application, permit plan set, and payment receipt for submittal. You only need to submit one packet of evidence to meet this requirement. Next slide. Let's review the process of applying for funding and completing your project. The rebate process is easy but different based on the equipment you apply for. For DCFC or combo applications, the first step is to submit an online application and provide the site verification form within 5 calendar days. CSE will then review your application and confirm eligibility. Once eligibility is confirmed, your rebate funds are reserved for your application. Once CALeVIP confirms that the funds have been reserved, you will have 450 days or 15 months to complete your project. To avoid application cancellation, you must provide evidence of permit submittal or utility design submittal within 60 calendar days of the fund's reserve date. Next slide. Step 5 of this process consists of you uploading your documents online for CSE review. If you applied for a milestone payment, step 6 is the delivery of your milestone payment check. To apply for a milestone payment, you need to submit at least a permit and design engineering invoice, but can include any other eligible costs incurred after funds have been reserved. The final step in this process is for you to upload your remaining documents online, and CALeVIP will complete review of all necessary documents. Once your payment is approved, CALeVIP will notify you that your final check has been mailed. Next slide, please. The process for applying for Level 2 rebates is similar to applying for DC Fast Charger rebates, with the main difference being that Level 2 charger applications are not eligible for milestone payments. For Level 2 only, an applicant has 270 days or 9 months to upload all documents for final payment. For the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project, CALeVIP has partnered with Sonoma Clean Power and Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District. There are eligibility requirements to access partner funding. To receive Sonoma Clean Power funds, site hosts and the installed chargers must be active SCP customers and provide the PG&E account holder and account holder number at the time of application. Before you apply, please identify the utility information for the site, and if the site is powered by PG&E, please provide the account number and account holder name. Providing this information will allow us to verify your eligibility for all available funding sources. Next slide. To be eligible for Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District funds, the installation site must be within the district's jurisdiction. Please see their website for more information. VSC will verify your eligibility based on the installation site address. Next slide. We've now completed the overview of the project requirements and eligibility criteria for the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project. Now we will transition into a walkthrough of the project application. We want to ensure that you have as much information as you need to be successful in the application process when you're ready to apply for your chargers. So let's dive in. Next slide. Here are some tips on how to submit your application so that they can be processed as quickly as possible and you can receive the maximum funding available to you. Please submit only one application per installation site. If you are unsure about the charger types you want to install at your site or have questions on submitting a combo application, contact the CALeVIP team before submitting your application. If the technology type you are interested in applying for has less funding available than you would need for your project, please apply for the maximum you would need. CALeVIP cannot increase the charger quantities or rebate amounts you initially applied for, but can work with you to reduce the quantity of chargers to meet available funding amounts. Please note that processing times can be significantly delayed if multiple applications are submitted for a single installation site. Next slide. Now moving into the application walkthrough itself. Once you've created a CALeVIP account, you're on your way to applying for and submitting an application for chargers. The Sonoma Coast Incentive Project will begin accepting applications on July 8th. On this day, the Apply Now button will be available on the project landing page. If you are signed in and click this button, you'll be taken to the first page of the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project application, the equipment selection page. The first section is installation site type, which determines which charger type your site is qualified for. Some sites can receive rebates for either level 2 or DC fast chargers, whereas others can be eligible for both types. If you choose a commercial site in this first question, a second question will appear requesting you to specify what the commercial site is. The next section is selecting equipment you plan to install at the site. You must choose the charger make and model, connectors per charger, quantity, and charger installation type. You can also click Add Another Item if you would like to add more chargers. For example, if you would like to add a different charger make or a different technology type. The final section on this page is to enter network provider information. Next slide. Next, you'll be directed to the project requirements page. The project requirements detail the terms and conditions you are agreeing to at time of application submittal. These requirements are also noted in the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project Implementation Manual for you to review prior to the project launch date. The last section of the project requirements is the declaration section. Please read through this section carefully and click Accept and Continue when you're ready to move on. Next slide. Once the project requirements have been accepted, you will be taken to the third step of the application, the Submit Application page. In the first section, you will enter the details of the organization, including applicant type, applicant organization name, tax identification number, organization address, and site ownership information. Please ensure that the correct organization is entered on the application. This field cannot be changed on any applications. If you want to list a different organization, that would require submitting a new application. Next slide. This next section of the application is the declaration section of the application. Please answer these in the perspective of the rebate recipient. The declaration questions on the application page are: have you declared bankruptcy in the last 5 years? Do you have threatened legal actions by or against you? Do you have any pending legal actions by or against you? Do you have any loan defaults? And do you have any outstanding judgments? Next slide. One point of clarity is the term application manager. The application manager is the individual managing the application. The application manager can be different than the rebate recipient. For example, if an EVSP is submitting an application on behalf of a site owner, the EVSP would be the application manager for the project. In this section, you'll include the application manager's contact name and contact phone number. Next slide. Here are the details that must be entered for the installation address. The installation street address must be entered correctly. To ensure placeholder addresses aren't used, changes to the installation site address are not allowed. If you want to change the address, you will need to submit a new application for that new address. Please ensure that the installation site is within Sonoma or Mendocino County. The application will receive an error and will not be submitted if the installation address is not within one of these counties. Next slide. In the installation details section, you will enter the additional details about your project. Please enter the business that is closest to the chargers, if the site is on tribal land, and public accessibility questions. An affordable housing question will appear here if you've selected a multi-unit dwelling site. Next slide. One of the final questions on the application asks if this site is provided power by Pacific Gas and Electric. If you choose yes, then 2 more boxes will appear requesting the PG&E account number and account holder name. Next slide. The online application does include some research questions. This series of questions requests more information on installation details and is helpful for CSE research purposes. Please answer as accurately as possible. Next slide. You can expect to see this page once you've successfully submitted your application. On this application dashboard, you will find more information on the status and details of your application. This is also where you will be uploading all supporting documents, including the site verification form. When your application is processed into the funds reserve stage, the remaining upload document fields will appear for you to submit all supporting documents. Please make sure to click Submit Documents after uploading the documents to this portal. That signals to the CALeVIP staff that those documents are ready for review. Next slide. These are the documents that are required to be submitted on your portal to receive a payment for your completed project. Please visit the sample supporting documents on the project landing page for more examples of each document and more details on the requirement for each document. The required documents include a site verification form, evidence of permit submittal or utility service design submittal, a signed application form, a copy of the design invoice, permit, equipment purchase invoice, installation purchase invoice, final inspection card, 2 photos of the installed and operational equipment, photos of the equipment serial number on each charger, a network agreement with a minimum term, and if applicable, the utility service order. Next slide. The installation data form is also required to receive payment for your project. The installation data form is available as soon as your funds are reserved. We recommend filling out the form as you progress through your project. The installation data form is available on the CALeVIP applicant dashboard, and through that you can continually upload your progress and save it. Next slide. To wrap up this presentation, we'd like to review some of the highlights and important notes to consider. The Sonoma Coast Incentive Project launches on July 8th, and applications will be available that day. Eligible properties in Sonoma and Mendocino counties can apply for Level 2 and DC Fast Charger rebates. All applicants must submit the site verification form, and it is recommended that you complete the form in advance of applying. An applicant may begin incurring purchase and installation costs once you've received confirmation from the CALeVIP team that funds have been reserved for your application. As with any application, please double-check your information, especially the organization name and installation address fields. These two pieces of information cannot be changed after the application is submitted, so please ensure that they are entered correctly when you apply. Additionally, when entering the rebate recipient organization, ensure that you are entering the organization name and address as it's registered with the California Secretary of State. Next slide. Another helpful feature of CALeVIP is the opportunity to request technical assistance. Visit the technical assistance page or contact the CALeVIP technical assistance experts at any point for questions relating to your Eevee charger installation project. Next slide. You can view the Energy Commission's CALeVIP docket by using the link on this slide. Through the docket, you can submit or view comments at any time, view past CALeVIP presentations, and sign up for the CALeVIP email listserv to stay updated on future webinars. Next slide. Now is the time for the questions and answers session. Our panelists for today are Nicole Appenzeller from the Center for Sustainable Energy, Brian Fauble from the California Energy Commission, and Nelson Lomelli from Sonoma Clean Power. If you'd like to ask a question, please submit the question in the question box feature on the GoToWebinar control panel. Please make sure to include your name and organization in the question. Nicole Appenzeller will be helping moderate this Q&A session.
Thanks. Thanks, Divya. And thank you all for submitting all of your questions thus far. Please continue to submit your questions and include your organization information if possible. And so I want to start with a question from Patrick Carter. He asked, previously the application start date was going to be for October 2020, and now it's stated as July. What precipitated the change? I want to ask for support from Brian Fauble to answer this question, please.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that question. So I'd say the first aspect is we held a workshop around Sonoma Coast final requirements on April 9th that we did go a little more into depth on this change and the reshuffle of all of our 2020 projects, where we are now going first with the Sonoma Coast project, and then our Peninsula Silicon Valley project, and then our San Diego project. So it is a shift of all three projects, not just this one I wanted to address. But what caused that was a system readjustment that really needed to happen on the application control side of CALeVIP after our last incentive project. That took more development time than was really anticipated. And that development time took away development time for the Peninsula project, which is a much larger project and we were not going to be able to meet that launch date. And so in order to get all 3 projects still launched in 2020, we had to facilitate a reshuffle of the projects, which is the order we have now.
Thank you, Brian. Moving forward, I want to take a question from Anne Morkill. She asked, do we have to include payment options, or can we offer charging for free to our public visitors and employees? You do not need to include payment options, and you can choose to offer free charging. If you do require payment to use the charger, please review our requirements, because we require that you accept multiple forms of payment, and those requirements are outlined in our implementation manual. But any site is always free to offer free charging. Thanks for that question, Anne. Another question from David Lane was, is sales tax for equipment an eligible cost that will be reimbursed? And the answer is yes. Sales tax associated with any eligible cost qualifies for reimbursement under CALeVIP. An additional question was from Benjamin Peters. What level of incentive will a 25 kilowatt DC fast charger be eligible for? And I'd like to again ask for support from Brian Fauble on that question.
Sure. So at this time, CALeVIP is not offering rebates for 24 kW chargers. Our design for equipment right now is really split for fast chargers that are minimum 50 kW up to 99.9 for one amount, and then 100 kW and greater for an additional amount. And our level 2 rebate is really for the J1772 connectors that I think, don't quote me on it, but goes up to about 20 kilowatts. So right now there is a dead space that is uneligible equipment, but that is something that definitely we welcome comments submitted to the CALeVIP docket and could be open for consideration in future incentive projects.
Great, thanks, Brian. We've received a question from a couple of users on what time the website opens for applications for the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project. And those details are still being finalized. We do encourage you to sign up as a CALeVIP subscriber on our website. That will be one channel that will be providing this communication once those details are finalized. And we will also plan to post final details on the time of day that applications will open on the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project landing page. And that website, Davia has mentioned several parts in the webinar. So please plan to sign up as a subscriber and look to the website for more information on the time of day that applications will open for this project. And thanks for that question. Another question that was raised was from Anita B. She asked, how are disadvantaged communities defined? And again, I want to ask for Brian Fauble's support to provide an answer on DAC definition.
Sure. Yeah, so the implementation manual will give you more information as well as the presentation slides, but disadvantaged communities are utilizing the CalEnviroScreen 3.0 tool, and is the top 25 percentile for DACs. So there is a tool you can go to online, the CalEnviroScreen 3.0 online tool. You can put in your address and it'll tell you what your DAC level is, or rating. And if it's in that top 75% or higher, then you would be eligible for the additional rebate.
Great, thanks, Brian. Another question from Pat Allen. Where can I get more information on types of chargers that are eligible for the rebate, where to get them, and the cost? That's a great question. We have a resource available on the CALeVIP website for eligible equipment. We maintain a list of eligible equipment involving details on power levels, contacts to each Eevee EV charging manufacturer. So you can get in touch with them to ask more specific questions about each charger, and we maintain that list. So any charger that's on that list is eligible to participate in CALeVIP. So please reach out and visit that list and follow up if you have any additional questions on equipment eligibility prior to applying. Another question was regarding stacking incentives. It's from Brant Arthur, who asked, can you talk a little more about whether CALeVIP funds can be stacked with other incentives and how that might work? And again, I'll ask for your support on this one, Brian.
Sure. So CALeVIP allows for stacking of rebates of other rebate programs for the most part. If that program has a set dollar amount of funding available, it will be allowed to stack. If the program says a fixed amount of chargers is their limit, say they're going to fund 1,000 chargers, then they are not eligible to stack with us. CALeVIP is looking to utilize or leverage funding for more chargers rather than partnering with a project or program that is still only going to install that number of chargers. So that's one thing to look at. And again, we allow that stacking up to the percentages and dollar amounts of what your actual project cost is, but there will not be profiting allowed, but we definitely encourage you to stack as much as you can to cover as much costs as you can.
Great, thanks, Brian. Eleni Petro asked, so in Sonoma, there's an active application max of 400,000, but a project site limit of 320,000. I want to provide some clarity on that. There is an active application max of $400,000 applied to applications, applied to organizations that apply for sites in Sonoma County, but that is not the site limit. So you can apply for up to 4 DC fast chargers per installation site, and those are qualified for the rebate. But you can also apply for an additional level 2 connectors, and that limit is up to 10. So you can apply for a combination of chargers that would have a combined total up to $400,000 for sites in Sonoma County. And that $400,000 maximum can be applied across multiple sites. So if you are applying for multiple sites, you can apply for rebates up to a total of $400,000 per organization in Sonoma County. Thanks for that question. Paul Anderson asked, will a sample full application be provided prior to the July 8th date? And the answer is no. We will make this presentation available, so you will have these slides that you can reference in order to prepare. And we are also available via phone and email. So if you do have any follow-up questions related to any application fields or inputs, please follow up with our staff in advance of July 8th, and we can support you with any questions you have. Another question from Greg G was, at the last CALeVIP webinar, you had launch dates of fall for the Peninsula project and winter for the San Diego project. Are there any updates to these timelines? And I'll pass that one over to Brian for an answer.
Yeah, so obviously if it hasn't gone out in the email yet, we cannot share specific dates, but those tentative periods are still aligning in the stars, I would say. There has been an email that's gone out about our Peninsula Silicon Valley Incentive Project Requirements webinar that is going to be held next week on Tuesday the 23rd. And so if you have not seen that email, I'd recommend going to CALeVIP.org and signing up for the listserv so that you'll see the next ones that come out. Or you can also go to the CEC's CALeVIP docket to get information on that.
Great, thanks, Brian. A question from John Schott was around a Sonoma Clean Power account number. He asked, what should applicants enter for a Sonoma Clean Power account number if an account number hasn't been issued yet, but will eventually? If you don't have an account number yet and you won't be able to supply that information, there's no expectation to submit that as part of your online application. But if that account number is available at a future date, we ask that you pass that information on to us. What that will do is potentially qualify your site for funding from Sonoma Clean Power. So if you are eligible for that funding, we'd like to determine that before your funds are issued, and that could expand your funding eligibility, which is always a good thing. And Nelson, do you have anything to add from Sonoma Clean Power perspective on expectations around account numbers?
No, the only expectation I would say in terms of account numbers is to provide, if you can, provide the business account number of which you're doing the installation for. So for example, if there is a target that you're doing an installation for, provide their account number, because we understand that getting an account number for the charges themselves can take a little bit of time, but using the business of which you're applying under can help with the process that Nicole described.
Great, thanks, Nelson. Victoria Edmonds asked a question around eligibility for office buildings. She asked, we are looking to install charging stations at our office buildings. Do they have to be available to the public versus just our tenants at the office park? So workplaces are an eligible site type for level 2 charging. In order to be eligible for rebates for DC fast chargers, you will need to qualify as a site, but typically for workplace, that eligibility would be for level 2 chargers. And for level 2 chargers, you do not have to provide 24/7 access to the public for your site. That can be limited to just your tenants or your employees. Whereas for DC fast chargers, if you do qualify as a DC fast charger site, one of those requirements is to allow 24/7 access to the public. So if you're looking to provide charging for your office park and you want that to be limited to just your tenants, you can qualify for level 2 chargers through our project. Thanks for your question.
Nicole, can I add one small part on the fast charger eligibility?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so we had a previous slide that showed DC fast charger eligibility sites, and we listed out specific examples. And to clarify, those site types are the only site types that are eligible. So they weren't examples of some, and others would also be. Those site types are, or business types are, the only types that are allowed for fast chargers. So it can't be any just normal commercial building or retail. It needs to fit into one of those site types. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks, Brian. Another question was raised from John Mason from Greenlots. He asked, which entity gets to keep or use the LCFS credits generated from the charging stations? Brian, can you speak to that question?
I would be happy to. So LCFS is up to the sole decision of the owner of the equipment, as it standard is in LCFS. It's the first right of refusal or assignment is the owner of the chargers can utilize those in their best interest, whether it is assigning it to an EVSP for discounts on either the equipment or the services or anything, or it can go to some third party that's offering additional rebates or to purchase those. So CALeVIP in this project is not enforcing any requirements of assignment, and it is solely up to the owner of the equipment to find out what's the best use case for them. and we hopefully are trying to launch more education on options of LCFS to site hosts, but I'm not quite sure if that's going to be launched in time before this launch date. But definitely feel free to reach out to CSE if you have questions about what those options are in the meantime.
Thanks, Brian. A question from Chris Stats was, for previous programs, we've been able to update the name of the organization if it doesn't match exactly as the California Secretary of State, or excuse me, Secretary of State business lookup. Will that be the case for the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project? Yes, we still want to provide you with some flexibility. So if there is a misalignment, we can provide you with the ability to adjust an organization name, but we do ask you to try to find out that information in advance. If you're able to supply that correct information at time of application, that will lead to a more efficient processing and decreased speed required to process your application. Because if we are seeing a mismatch, that will result in a follow-up being required, which will impact the time required to process your application. So in the event that you can find that correct information in advance of your application, we ask you to aim to do that. Thanks for your question, Chris. Jacqueline L. had a question for Brian. She said, Brian, can you please repeat your response to what you said about the CalEnviroScreen tool and how you can determine which locations are eligible for DACs?
Yeah, so CalEnviroScreen is a tool that's online. So if you just search CalEnviroScreen 3.0, you can scroll down to the interactive tool. It should give you a picture of the state broken down by multiple, I believe, census tracts or different regions with a whole bunch of different colors. And if you type in your address, you can do a search for that address and it'll show you what tract you're in. And if you click on it, it will basically give you the color code, but also the rating. And so for CALeVIP for this project, it is a 75% to 100% CalEnviroScreen score that would be eligible for the DAC adder. And again, that information is available in the implementation manual. And I believe the link is as well if you need a direct source.
Great, thank you, Brian. Another question was related to street level charging in municipalities. So will this grant be eligible for street level charging in municipalities? And this was asked by Jacqueline L. as well. And the answer is yes, curbside charging is eligible for rebates through CALeVIP. So as part of your curbside charging, we ask you to provide the cross streets that are nearest to that charger, and specifically for DC fast charging eligibility, that curbside charging must be within a block of one of our qualified DC fast charger sites. So again, for that list, please visit our website or reference this webinar presentation. Divya provided a list of those eligible DC fast charger sites. So that is a requirement if you're planning to install any curbside DC fast charging equipment and have it be eligible for CALeVIP. So thanks for that question. Eleni had a follow-up question related to stacking CALeVIP incentives. And I'm going to ask you for your continued support on this, Brian. She asked, can you stack CALeVIP with other CEC funding as long as it has a maximum dollar amount rather than an infrastructure charger max?
Good question. I should have clarified that. That is one item we don't allow. So Energy Commission funds are not allowed to stack with other Energy Commission program funding. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Brian. Charles Merlo had a question. Will COVID-19 affect approval of rebates? payments? And the answer to that is no. We understand that there might be delays experienced with project installations. So the only impact that we are planning to experience from COVID for CALeVIP is we anticipate that there might be some delays on your project installations. So what we are asking for from each site is, if you notice that you're going to need more time due to COVID, and you need more time to finish your installation, please reach out to us and we can grant you an extension if needed. As Divya mentioned in her presentation, we have project completion periods of 12 months or 15 months. And in order to meet that, you'll need to be communicating with us. We understand that you might experience some delays on your end due to the impacts of COVID. So we want to work together with you in order to make sure that you have the time to be successful. But from a payment perspective, there will not be any delays due to COVID. We will still be planning to provide all incentive payments within 15 business days of your application approval. So thanks for that question, Charles.
Nicole, can you clarify maybe a little bit more of application approval for that payment? We understand some people have been turning in what they think is a final document and final payments, and that that is not considered the final application. It's really when everything's been verified and approved. Can you explain or go into a little more detail on that?
Yes. So in order to be approved, specifically for your final payment, you need to supply all of those required documents that Divya outlined today. Those need to be submitted, uploaded via your CALeVIP applicant portal, and then they need to be reviewed by our team. If we have any follow-ups, we'll follow up with you via email to seek out any missing or incomplete information. And then once all of those required documents, including your installation data form, are complete and approved, that's what will signify your application approval. And it is 15 business days from that date that you can expect your payment to be issued. For milestone payment, that functions a little bit differently. There are specific documents that are required in order to qualify for that payment. So once you meet those minimum requirements and those documents have been submitted, reviewed, and approved, then you will be qualified to receive your milestone payment. And if you have any questions about specific documents, would encourage you to visit our website so you can see our sample supporting documents. We provide examples of each of our required documents and highlight which important fields are required on each document. So if you have any questions about one of our required documents, please view that sample supporting documents resource so you can understand what we'll be looking for once we receive that document from you. Thanks for that question. David Liebman asked a question related to DAC. He asked, what if property location is not in a DAC, but the property serves a population from disadvantaged communities or DACs? For the purposes of CALeVIP, we define DAC eligibility based on the installation site address itself. So while we love to hear that a property will serve a disadvantaged community, it's based on the charger site location itself on whether or not a site qualifies for additional funds as a disadvantaged community site. Thanks for your question on that, David. Kong Bang asked, are permits required per installation, or can the customer installer apply for one permit if they are installing EV chargers for multiple sites? And Brian, can you take this question?
I'll do my best. So typically every site has to have its own permit, as every site will have its own site design and utility design that is different. and it's typically a job site has its own permit process, to the best of my knowledge. So I would contact your local authority having jurisdiction, whether that's your city or your county planning department or building, to see what their process is. But yes, each one of our applications will have to have a permit that details that job site.
Great, thanks, Brian. Ann Morekill had a question. Are subsequent applications for new projects by the same company eligible, or can we apply for additional funds to complete original project if the total costs are over the up to $5,000 or less for level 2? And so for the purposes of the CALeVIP project, only new sites will qualify for chargers. And by new sites, I mean new chargers that are being installed. If your project is going to cost more than the up to amounts that we have rebates available for, then you cannot go back and reapply for more funds for that specific project. Each site has one chance to apply for that site through the current structure of our project. And Brian, do you want to add anything to that, or any additional detail you want to add there?
Yeah, I just state that CALeVIP allows one application per site. So it's not even if there's two entities going after the same site, only one application will get approved for that site. And again, like Nicole was saying, if you install 10 and it costs $150,000, but your rebates only covered $70,000, you cannot submit another application for those previously installed chargers, or even to install additional. The possible, the other options though is if you have existing chargers and you would like to, that are previously installed and paid, and you would like to install new additional chargers, that is eligible, as long as those previous ones weren't CALeVIP. Or if you would like to replace existing chargers with new CALeVIP chargers, that is also well, but you cannot apply for two rebates for one installation.
Great, thanks, Brian. Anne also had a follow-up question. Is the rebate paid up front before we incur any expenses, or is it only a reimbursement for costs incurred by a company on the project? And the answer is yes, it is a reimbursement for costs already incurred by the company or organization on the project. For DC fast charger only applications, or for combination applications that involve DC fast chargers and level 2 charging, we do offer an option of a milestone payment. So once you meet some base requirements, you can qualify to request a milestone payment, and that's a way that you can get some of that funding in advance of your installation project being complete. But all of the costs must be incurred in order to qualify for a payment through CALeVIP. Thanks for that question, Anne.
Yeah, and I'd add that incurred can mean a net 30 invoice of a bill. So incurred does not mean cash or check, credit card, etc. verified. It can be you have received a net 30 payment request that is due, and that can be allowed as well. I'd also add that the milestone payments, just as a caution, if you get a milestone payment, but for some reason do not complete the project for any reasons, that payment will have to be repaid back to CALeVIP.
Thanks for providing that additional information, Brian. Jacqueline had a question asking, the other grants on the CALeVIP site that are full, will they be opening again for the next time period? Brian, can you speak to that?
So I'm expecting that question is meaning that oversubscribed projects, are they going to be opening back up? So it's a case-by-case project answer, where if we have funding partners in that project that have either multiple year contributions or decide, hey, we want to put more in, that's when it would quote unquote open, where it would not open up as another first come first serve. All of our projects keep our application list that is received at all times, and if new funding becomes available, we go to the next applicant that was just missed by a hair of how much funding was available, and we move down that list with how much funding is available. So one example is the Central Coast Incentive Project. Our partner there, the Monterey Bay Community Power Group, is a 3-year, $1 million a year partner. And so when their financial fiscal year contribution gets added this year, we would do that same thing and go down that list. That's also the plan here for this Sonoma Coast project with Sonoma Clean Power and the Air District's funds, is that this list that we will receive in the first year and however over the life of this project will be the list that is utilized. And also, I guess, if the state legislature decides to throw a whole bunch of money at us and we need to spend it quickly, we will definitely be analyzing which projects we would like to go back and fill the oversubscriptions.
Great, thanks, Brian. Heather H had a question. If an EV charging service provider purchases evse wholesale, how does that need to be reported in the CALeVIP application? Can a larger wholesale invoice be submitted for a smaller project? Brian, can you speak to that question?
I can try. I think you guys might correct me a little bit, but for the most part, whoever purchases the equipment will need to show a unit cost for that charger and be able to validate that in a backup document to CSE. And so again, it's costs incurred. So if that's the cost, if you bought 100 chargers and basically they came to $2,000 each instead of $3,000 each, then that $2,000, do some simple math or whatever CSE is going to require, but you'd still need to show a unit cost for those chargers to be identifiable, to be billed. That's my best stab at it. Sorry.
No, thank you for providing detail there. Yeah, to Brian's point, we'll be looking for that unit cost for the charger, so you can always supply us with a larger invoice if you have made a larger purchase. What we'll be looking to do is to identify the costs associated with the chargers that will be eligible for CALeVIP. So if that's up to 4 DC fast chargers in some counties, then we'd be looking for the costs associated with those 4 chargers, and we would not be taking into consideration any other equipment costs outside of those pieces of equipment that are eligible for CALeVIP rebates. Thanks for your question, Heather. Please follow up if you have any additional questions about invoices during the process or before you apply. Mike Casterline asked a question, what is the expected turnaround time between steps 1 and 2? So between steps 1 and 2 and step 3. So how long is it taking between application submittal and the funds reserved timeline? And for that answer, that step in between is your application review. We conduct an initial verification to determine that that site meets all eligibility requirements. and we may be following up with you in this period to determine eligibility or ask for any follow-up information related to the site verification form. So ideally that time frame only lasts a couple of business days, but it could be up to 20 business days based on required follow-ups. We do try to keep that as short as possible because we know that the funds reserve date is the green light for you to actually start incurring costs for your project. So we want to shorten that window as much as possible, but based on number of applications that are being processed and follow-up required, that time frame can vary and might be taking up to 20 business days. What we do is follow up with applicants. So if anything is missing or incomplete, we follow up with you via email so that we can seek to resolve that as soon as possible in order to reserve funds for your application. So thanks for that question, Mike.
Yeah, Nicole,
Mike also had a question.
Can I add a little bit in there, Nicole? I'd also want to add that our rebate specialists work on all aspects of CALeVIP as well, not just the initial reviews. So it is really dependent on the demand we get at the time. We do have, extension requests because of COVID coming in. We have the final payments, we have milestone payments, as well as these initial reviews. So there are things, like Nicole is saying, that can influence, but also the applicants can help us with. The big one I always try to hammer home on these webinars is applicants do not need to submit 3 applications in a different style for one site. So we know that the fast charger funds fly off the shelves quickly, and so we've seen a single applicant for a single site fill out 3 applications, one a combo, one a DC only, and one a level 2 only, because they want to cover them in case one of the funding's not available. I believe CSE has now made it so that an applicant, if you want a combo, just fill out a combo, and if funds aren't available for one of the technologies, they have the ability to adjust that application to what is available. And so by minimizing and getting rid of those triplet or duplicate, if you have multiple people filling out, just do your one application, because if there are multiples, CSE has to go through and review each of those and process and then delete or cancel. And if we have less of duplicates, then we can move down that list a lot quicker. And then that other aspect we mentioned is get that site verification form in as quickly as possible. If you have your full 5 days and you're waiting on it, then you're holding up that list down the line. If everybody waits 5 days, then it's going to take a while. So get that up as quickly as possible. Please don't do duplicates, and please be as responsive as you can when CSE does have additional questions for you.
Thanks, Brian. I also want to just state a correction because I might have mischaracterized our project completion periods. But again, those completion periods are 9 months for level 2 only projects and 15 months for DC fast charger or combo applications. So I wanted to make sure I didn't misspeak to that point. Make that correction now. So we have a couple of questions left. I have seen the chat box slow down. So if you have any additional questions, please try to submit them in the next couple of minutes as we work through these final questions. We have until 3 p.m. if needed, but I want to make sure that if you have a question, you get that submitted in so we can answer as many questions as possible today. Sarah had a question. For the application cap, is that by a certain customer or by the company submitting? My company may be submitting on behalf of multiple customers. Will my company be limited by the cap across all projects? So the active application cap is based on application organization, and we define that as the rebate recipient. So we enforce that using the tax identification number. So that's how we'll be applying that limit across your projects. So one company can apply for up to that amount in active applications, And as Divya described, those active application limits are applied per county. So that's up to $400,000 in Sonoma County, and it's a different amount for Mendocino County. But what a company could do is work with the site owner. So if a site owner wants to receive that rebate directly, you can use the site owner information as a means to divert some applications in order to work within that limit. So if you have any specific questions on how you want to be set up for success and how your company should plan to submit applications based on limits, please reach out to our team. We can provide you with more information on the requirement so you know exactly what strategy you're going to apply before you apply, because we can give you a very clear idea of how the requirement will affect you based on your use case. So please reach out if you have any follow-up questions on that. Thanks for that question, Sarah. Patrick Carter asked, does an application from a municipality require an approved resolution, or can the application be submitted first and the resolution be received after the application submission, but prior to project implementation? And Brian, can you speak to this question, please?
Sure. So we do not require any specifics from municipal or public saying that they have approved this. That said, I would recommend you already have that in place, and maybe you have it written specially where it says pending, finance approval, because again, your clock is ticking as soon as that fund's reserve status happens. And me working for the government, I know, sometimes it's not the quickest process. So if you're doing a level 2 project and you're at 9 months, that's already an aggressive timeline. And what we've seen with some of our other projects, maybe our Southern California projects where we had a lot of cities apply for fast chargers, they still had 12 months, and they had to first get approval, then they had to do a RFI or a bid out for contractors, and you're eating all that time before you can even start your project. So those items are not really going to be allowed for extension requests, and we just recommend that you do as much as you can now, so that for everybody, not just public agencies or municipalities, but you need to do as much homework now so that when your clock starts ticking, you move forward, especially since we have that new requirement of 60 days in, having that proof of permit or utility design.
Thanks, Brian. Patrick also asked, can a single application include multiple sites? And the answer is no. Each application should be submitted for a single installation address. So if you are applying for multiple sites, please submit multiple applications. And as we've mentioned previously, please make sure that you're only submitting one application per site. So in the event that you are worried that there's going to be available funding for your site, please apply for what you're looking for. We can always make adjustments on the back end. So in the event that we don't have funds for one technology, we can adjust your application manually to accommodate what our available funding levels are. So please, request what you are looking for your specific project, and then we can always make adjustments on the back end. But please try to avoid submitting more than one application per site. So thanks for that question, Patrick. Ann Moorkill asked, can rebates pay for leasing charging equipment? Brian, can you speak to that?
I think that question will just need to be maybe followed up by CSE in an email or something, because I am actually not fully into that requirement. Again, we have our minimum terms of 2 years of operation and networks for the level 2s and 5 years for the fast chargers. Obviously, if we're using state dollars, we'd really like these chargers to live out their full life cycle and not be a temporary investment. And so, I think CSC might need to follow up on that a little more, where, our goal is that these chargers are really going to be there 10 years or more.
Yeah, and to speak to that, one of the requirements of the CALeVIP project is that level 2 chargers are staying in operation for 2 years, and DC fast chargers are staying in operation for 5 years. So please be aware that those are some of our current requirements. So if you have a specific question or are thinking about leasing equipment, please reach out to us and we can provide you with more guidance on next steps and determine if you'd be eligible to participate in CALeVIP. Don Hess had a question. If a level 2 charger is going to be located in the parking area for a nonprofit land conservation area on the coast, and this parking area is closed on occasion, can this location still be funded by CALeVIP? The answer is yes, because it is a level 2 charger. So level 2 chargers do not need to be accessible 24/7 in order to be rebated for CALeVIP. The main difference is for DC fast charger sites, those sites do need to remain open and accessible to the public 24/7. So in the case of level 2 installations, you do have flexibility to close a site or make it inaccessible to the general public. But in cases of DC fast chargers, they need to be available to the public 24/7. So thanks for your question, Dawn. Jacqueline L. had a question. I am the business development manager and basically the one managing the grants and doing the process for our clients and their locations. Just to confirm, as long as we have a letter of approval from them and the necessary docs, is that okay? If you're applying on behalf of someone else, that is totally allowed for CALeVIP. What you'll need to do in advance is make sure that you have a couple of key pieces of information. You will need to have the site verification form filled out, and we encourage you to do that in advance, since that form is required to be uploaded within 5 days of your application date. That form is available online now, so you can download it and have that filled out in advance, so that at your time of application, once you submit your application successfully, you can then upload that site verification form. In addition, you'll need the tax identification number for the rebate recipient. So if you are not that rebate recipient directly, you need to make sure that you have that information available and on hand before applying, because we will be asking for that field. In addition, I would recommend just reviewing the requirements in advance and reviewing this webinar presentation again once that becomes available. As we stated, we'll be sharing the webinar presentation as well as this recording with all attendees. So I would recommend just generally making yourself very familiar with the application requirements so that you can be set up for success on application day. For a lot of questions, we are asking you to answer from the perspective of the rebate recipient. So we'll be asking for some key information related to them around addresses and as well as organization name. So it will be helpful if you have all of that information up front. And if you have any follow-up questions related to your role and how you can be set up for success on application day, please reach out to our staff and we'll be more than happy to help you through any follow-up questions. Heather had a question related to PG&E account number. She asked, do all applicants, both level 2 and DCFC, need to provide their PG&E account number and name? Yes, we generally recommend if you have a PG&E account number and account holder name, that you supply that information. What that allows us to do is to determine if you are an active Sonoma Clean Power customer, and that can qualify you for additional funds that are available through Sonoma Clean Power. So in addition to the California Energy Commission, Sonoma Clean Power, and the Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District are contributing funds to this project. So by supplying your PG&E account number information, we can identify if you qualify for those funds. And that will be important, as we work through available funding. That will give you the best opportunity to access all of our available funding. So if you have that information, we strongly recommend that you provide that at time of application. Mike Casterline had a question. Is it disqualifying to have any legal actions pending by or against the applicant? Hope not. And Brian, can you speak to this requirement around our declarations, please?
Yeah, so that's really in place where it's not an automatic. It goes into a review, and CSE will pretty much contact you to ask for a little more detail of what you can share. But the goal is, we're really we want to make sure that the businesses that are applying are businesses that will be in business for a while, is one. And so, we want to make sure they're not being sued where, they're going to lose all the money and be out of business soon. As well as we want to make sure that people we're providing funds to are kind of in a good financial situation. So no, they're not automatic deniers or variables, but there will just be a further review that would need to occur.
Thanks, Brian. Jesse G asked a question. Does behind the gate mean if a site will be disqualified if there is a gate, or if the site can still be eligible if there's 24/7 access accessible to enter the gate? So if there's a gate between the charger and the public, but it is accessible, like for instance, if it's a paid parking structure, that is allowed per CALeVIP. What is not allowed is a gate that doesn't provide general access to the public. So a gate maybe across a school or a business park that wouldn't be allowing a member of the general public to access that charger. If the main access limiter is money in terms of paying to access that charger to complete your paid parking, then that is allowed. And again, the 24/7 access is applied specifically to DC fast charger installations. They're not the same limitations for level 2 chargers. So if you have any questions or you have a specific site that you're thinking about and you want to determine if it's eligible, please reach out to our team and we can provide you with more information on eligibility prior to your application. Just doing a quick review of any of the final questions.
Nicole, I wanted to clarify one of my previous answers. I think it was to Jacqueline L's question on CalEnviroscreen and the specifics about it. Nelson helped me out a little bit to clarify it, that CalEnviroscreen 3.0 will show on its scale, ranges in 10 units or 10% each time. But when you click on each census, it'll say in a 5% range. And so it could be a 70 to 75 and a 75 to 80. And so what the top 25% really means is a score of 76 to 80. So those 75 or 76 and above. So if it's a 70 to 75 track, that will not likely qualify for DAC. But if it is the 75 to 80 range, that one would qualify. And so just a little more clarification there.
Great, thanks for that clarification. And again, if you have any questions about what your site would be qualified for and whether or not it would be determined to be a disadvantaged community, please feel free to reach out to our project staff. We can provide you with that confirmation in advance so you have a better understanding of what kind of rebate amount you might be eligible to receive through CALeVIP. There was a final question from Stuart Marcus. He asked, are we still eligible if our power source would be solar with battery storage and diesel generators? And Brian, can you speak to this question?
Partially, I can. So it is, again, dependent on the equipment. I would say for fast chargers, those have specific requirements that, again, if they're 24/7 and that minimum power requirement, you will need to justify to CSE that that charger will be delivering that minimum power capacity and be available really 24/7. And so you'll have to pretty much petition to prove that your setup, whatever it is, will be able to deliver 50 kilowatts of charging throughout the day. So, you know, if you're trying to do a 100 kilowatt hour battery with 4 chargers, 450 kW chargers on it, and you're attaching that battery at level 1 grid power, that's probably not going to cut it. And so you're really going to need to do the work to prove it, that it's going to work. Just on kind of a green mind, you know, diesel generators work great, but when we're doing green items, you know, it's not the best thing to show. My example is I saw a picture of a Tesla on the side of the road run out of juice, and then they have a generator trying to charge their car. And they're using gasoline now to do that. So, you know, we want to stay as green as possible. And solar, we need to see, usually solar panels are not an eligible cost, but that doesn't mean you can't, you know, go ahead and install it. Energy storage definitely is an eligible cost. But again, I would say you need to reach out to CSE more on exactly what your plan really is with this installation, especially if it's fast chargers.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I think if you have any specific questions around your specific case and site and what you're planning to set up, we highly recommend reaching out to our staff so we can have a clear understanding of what your plans are and provide you with direction on eligibility in relation to the project. So as you're working through these plans prior to July 8th, please reach out if you have any questions specific to your site and power sources. We're happy to provide you with more details about what your site might be qualified for. So there are just a couple of follow-up questions. So I wanted to follow up on a couple of items mentioned previously, but really want to make sure I can confirm with the group. This webinar presentation is being recorded and will be made available to all attendees and all registrants. We will be following up in the next week with a copy of the presentation and shortly thereafter with a copy of the recording. And these resources will also be made available on the CALeVIP docket. The timing of application availability on July 8th is still being finalized. But once that information is available, we will be emailing all of our CALeVIP subscribers, as well as posting information on the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project landing page. So if you haven't already subscribed for updates on CALeVIP, we encourage you to do so, and I'll provide you with some of that contact information in the next slide. But that's always a good source of information on the latest news about CALeVIP, and that will be one of the channels that we'll be utilizing to communicate launch date information for the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project. Again, you can also visit the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project landing page, which is available and live now for information on day of timing, because that's where we'll be posting any new updates there in advance of July 8th. So thank you for your patience as we determine final details around that. And please look out for information via email or on the project website. for that specific timing. Looking at the chat box, I haven't seen any new questions come through, so I like to move forward and provide you just with our contact information so that you can follow up with any additional questions in the future. Again, I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar on the Sonoma Coast Incentive Project. Please contact our project staff via phone or email, and the details are provided here. If you have any questions or follow-up needs, if you want to speak about the specifics of your project site, please reach out to us and we can determine your eligibility so that you have a clear understanding of what you will be eligible for prior to applying. We also encourage you all to visit the CALeVIP website to subscribe for CALeVIP updates so you can be informed of important CALeVIP news, including launch timing. Applications open for this project on July 8th, and we will be communicating more information out on the time of day that applications will be open via the project website and via email to all of our CALeVIP subscribers. Thank you again for attending today's webinar. We hope you have a great afternoon.